Hello and welcome. This is part 2 of TB Investigates Canton Cover-Up number 464. As always, the link to the original article will be in the description below, and part 1 will also be in the description below. This is number 10 of the article. It reads, Hank Brennan says the punctures on John's arm are actually freckles because John was Irish. So I will play this video.
Have anything like that. You're simply relying on your personal empirical experience.
Well, no, I also saw these two punctures, the punctate wounds right there. And that made me think that it was more teeth than claw marks.
This here you're describing
Yes.
as punctate?
Punctate, yeah.
Now, you never got the benefit of seeing Mr. O'Keefe, did you?
Personally, no.
Did you know he was Irish? Light skin?
Makes sense with that name.
Freckles, moles. Look at these. They're all over his body. You don't think the dog was puncturing up all over here, did you?
No.
Right. So these are the same. These little things, these skin blemishes, same as these all over the body.
Oh, you're a doctor?
Do you think that what you're describing as dog puncture wounds, you could be mistaken for just his skin and the different types of marks on his skin, like freckles or moles?
I don't believe so, particularly since they're right where those wounds are, the abrasions are.
Well, wouldn't the skin blemishes be there before any abrasions?
I haven't seen a picture of him before this incident.
Right. Okay. So to get back to, we're now at, this is either a dog bite or it's a scratch. What is it about the top two that tell you it's a dog bite?
Would you rephrase that? Or, would you say it again?
Guys, I did not finish watching the Daubert hearing because I was still working on my commentary series about the Daubert hearing. I only got to number 9, and I intended to make part 10. But again, because Judge Beverly Cannone already made a decision on the ability for Dr. Russell to testify at the retrial, I figured part 10 could wait, especially with all this new information coming in, especially with the defense's motion to recover expert expenses. So again, I do still intend to make a part 10, and I have not resumed watching the Daubert hearing from where part 9 leaves off, because again, I prefer my reaction, my commentary to these court proceedings to be genuine and to be the first time. So when I'm giving you my commentary, you are getting my authentic initial reaction to the information. And so that was my first time listening to Hank Brennan talk about John O'Keefe being Irish. Like, what the fuck? Oh man. Yeah, like anybody in Boston, anybody in Massachusetts knows that an O'Keefe last name is Irish. Anything O is Irish in Massachusetts. And I loved Dr. Marie Russell's reaction. Like, yeah, it makes sense with the name. She's like, what's your point, dude? And for Hank Brennan to imply that the punctures are freckles. OMG, like Hank Brennan, dude, like he went too far there. Like, come on. Freckles and blood spots, like holes in the skin, are not the same thing. Oh my God. Guys, I watched that segment with my mouth open. Like, I can't believe this dude. Like, Hank Brennan is like spacey. He's like way out there with his argument there. Okay. Uh, okay. All right. I gotta gather myself. Continuing with the article. Really, Spanky? That's the best you've got? Good luck with that one. Yeah, exactly. Like, Hank Brennan, where were you going with that? OMG. Like, what the fuck? Freckles. Freckles are puncture marks, guys. Insanity. Okay, the article continues. Number 11. Laura Sullivan and the other mean girls of Canton once again proved that the biggest tragedy of John O'Keefe's life were that his friends and family were such dreadful people, and the only person who seemed to give a shit about him is being framed for his murder. And when I went to the Daubert hearing that day, I provided a video about it, guys. The Karen Reed supporters were not permitted inside the hearing at the Superior Court, so we crossed the street to the district court to attend Aidan Kearney's hearing, where Aidan Kearney won against Lindsay. Anyway, so when some of us were live streaming the Daubert hearing on our phones, and I caught this part when she waved at the camera and she gave a thumbs up. I caught those parts when I caught it on other people's phones, and they were talking about it. It was bizarre and sinister. There's something insidious about the way in which she waved at the camera and did a thumbs up and giggled at the females next to her. And it all coincides with the video I made about the women who hate Karen Reed. It is true that Karen Reed is surrounded by hateful women who, for one reason or another, have it out for her. And I said in that video that I am familiar. I have experience with women to women hatred because it's happened to me directly. More women who are more attractive tend to get jealousy. They tend to get envious, jealous women against them at one point or another. And it's to me immaturity. It's other women who can't conduct themselves. Those are the women who tend to be insecure and intimidated by other women whom they perceive as more attractive. Like when I look at another woman, I don't think oh, is she prettier than me? Or am I prettier than her? Or like that, those thoughts don't go through my mind because I'm grown. Okay. I'm an adult, and I actually think everyone is beautiful. I think everyone has beauty in one way or another. Like beauty to me is in everything and in everyone. You just have to look for it. And I understand that from societal standards, beauty is subjective, and scientifically there's supposedly an ideal facial structure that society leans more toward when it comes to attractiveness. Anyway, there's science behind it, there's psychology behind it, but in the Karen Reed case, to me it's just deviousness, it's jealousy, and this misplaced hatred for Karen. To me, it was more so just plain old-fashioned hatred. It's mean girls, like Aidan Kearney put it, and this outcasting of Karen Reed because she's not part of that Canton club. she wasn't good enough to be part of that club. And Jennifer McCabe seemed to imply that during the trial, that there was something severely different from Karen Reed than from the McCabes and the Alberts, you know, which there isn't, guys. It's just the McCabes and the Alberts have a superiority complex and they think they are above everyone. It's clear they think they are above the law because they are the law, right? So Laura Sullivan and all the other haters, Jen McCabe included, to me, they are the nasty type of women who hate and outcast other women whom they feel they can't compete with. And to me, Karen Reed is an accomplished woman for her age, and the fact that she was dating John O'Keefe, whom many agree is a highly sought out individual. Again, some people considered John O'Keefe a player. And again, I wouldn't put it past Jennifer McCabe to be envious of Karen Reed for having been with John O'Keefe. Again, Jennifer McCabe and John O'Keefe had a history. So, continuing with the article. Yeah, more of the photographs of Sullivan. Yeah, it's just disgusting. I caught it live. Again, someone was streaming it on their phone and I caught that part live and I was like, what the hell is that? And it's evil. It's evil. It's Sullivan fucking around thinking this is a joke when it's really, again, a waste of resources. It's really a waste of Dr. Marie Russell's time. It's really Hank Brennan doing nothing but wasting everyone's time and putting on a show in an attempt to confuse the public's opinion. There's nothing funny about this, you know, but here are these females making it something funny. Like the inability to put yourself in Karen Reed's shoes, like someone being framed for something they did not do and having an entire community of assholes in Canton siding together to make sure that you get locked up for something you didn't do. The fact that Sullivan can't put herself in Karen Reed's shoes shows you how inhumane she really is. Continuing with the article. Number 12, Dr. Russell says that her belief that John was bitten by a dog has grown stronger since the first trial. And this is exactly why Auntie Bev cannot disqualify her as a witness. If she was allowed to testify the first time, and she's only become more resolute after learning more about the case since the first trial, then there's absolutely no reason her testimony shouldn't be heard in the second trial. Really good observation by Aidan. Continuing, the bottom line is that Hank Brennan is desperate because he knows that the facts are against him. The only hope he has at a hung jury this time around is if he keeps qualified expert witnesses from testifying. Karen Reed will never be convicted by 12 jurors, and it's going to be a pleasure watching Brennan lose. And that's the end of the article, I believe, but really good point. And I guys, with my Daubert hearing series on my channel, I also stated that Hank Brennan is desperate. It's actually one of the thumbnails on one of my videos. Hank Brennan is desperate. Again, freckles are not punctures. And that wasn't even the worst of it, guys. Like Hank Brennan pulled a lot of bullshit during the Daubert hearing. And it showed more, it revealed more that he is desperate than it revealed anything else. You know, he didn't actually have a real fight thought out. He didn't have a real strategy thought out, although he was effective at proving some points, and I say that objectively. Hank Brennan was effective at some points of the Daubert hearing, but more so his desperation to me overruled the point that he is effective. You know, when you're pushing the extreme like that over and over again and again, and you're wasting resources, you're wasting time. And the Daubert hearing itself was so peculiar because a majority of Daubert hearings are very brief, you know, half hour, 45 minutes. It's rare for a Daubert hearing to be an hour long. This Daubert hearing for Dr. Russell, thanks to Hank Brennan, thanks to his request, which Judge Beverly Cannone granted, that Daubert hearing was like 8 hours long one day, and then it was another 8 hours long another day. Like 16 hours of a Daubert hearing is unheard of, guys. That is Hank Brennan's desperation to win on behalf of Michael Morrissey. Okay? Hank Brennan, like Jennifer McCabe, is just another individual, another character in this fucked up story, doing dirty deeds for someone who is in a higher position of power. Jennifer McCabe did the dirty deeds for Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, and Hank Brennan and Adam Lally and McLaughlin are doing the dirty deeds for Michael Morrissey, who is also in a position of higher authority. So just to read this article briefly, I only took screenshots of it, but it's to conclude what Aidan was saying, and it's going to be a pleasure watching Brennan lose. Yes, Hank Brennan did lose. Judge Beverly Cannone did deny the motion to exclude Dr. Russell from the retrial. So again, these are just screenshots I took from the article. I will leave the link in the description below. It reads, Karen Reed case update, dog bite expert will be allowed to testify, Beverly Cannone rules. And it was a week ago that decision was made. It reads, jurors during the second Karen Reed trial will probably hear all about Chloe the dog. That's because the Norfolk Superior Court judge on Monday ruled that a, quote, dog bite, end quote, expert brought by the defense will be allowed to testify during the Reed retrial. The Norfolk DA's office had been trying to toss the testimony from Dr. Marie Russell, a retired emergency room doctor who, during the first trial, claimed that dog bites caused the wounds to John O'Keefe's body on January 29, 2022, the morning of the Boston cop's death. Russell will again be able to provide that dog bite testimony for the defense in the retrial, which is scheduled for April. Now, and I just want to say this article doesn't shed enough light on the word retired. Dr. Marie Russell is still actively practicing medicine. She's actively a current pathologist, a forensic pathologist. Maybe she's not in the emergency room as much as she was, as much as she used to be. But to me, she's not all that retired. She's still active in the medical industry. Continuing. Although a close question, although a close question, the court will deny the Commonwealth's motion, end quote, Judge Beverly Cannone wrote in her ruling on Monday. Quote, here, the recognition of dog bite wounds is not within the common knowledge of a layperson and requires expert testimony, and Dr. Russell is a qualified expert as to these topics, end quote, the judge wrote, later adding, quote, the court finds that Dr. Russell's testimony satisfies the 5 foundational elements, in parentheses for expert testimony, and therefore will allow Dr. Russell to testify as to whether the abrasions on John O'Keefe's right arm were caused by a dog. Now, and I don't like the wording at the top, although a close question. It's as if, again, Judge Bev was agreeing with Hank Brennan, but then she concludes it with abrasions. Judge Beverly Cannone refers to the marks on John O'Keefe's arm as abrasions. And if you have been following my videos, I went over the definition of abrasion and that the marks on John O'Keefe's arm do not meet the definition of an abrasion. And yet the Commonwealth, the prosecution, and the MSP, and now Judge Beverly Cannone have described the marks as abrasions. And why is that, guys? If you really think about it, like, how does the term abrasion help the prosecution's narrative? Because the prosecution knows that that taillight would have had to do other marks on John O'Keefe's body. That taillight would have left other marks on John O'Keefe's body. That those are actually lacerations on John O'Keefe's arm. Those are cut marks, they are puncture marks, they are claw marks. They are not abrasions. But the prosecution and the MSP and Judge Bev want the public to refer to those marks as abrasions, again, as if the public is made up of idiots, because the term abrasions more so coincides with the prosecution's narrative that John O'Keefe was struck by the rear right taillight of Karen Reed's SUV when she supposedly backed into him. And again, we know, those of us paying attention, we know that SUV never made contact with John O'Keefe. The word abrasion might seem minuscule to some people, but to me, guys, it's a detail that we owe attention to. It's yet another attempt to obfuscate the facts, the details of the case. Those are not abrasions, guys. Continuing with the article, quote, with respect to dog bites specifically, Dr. Russell has treated hundreds of wounds resulting from dog attacks during her time as an emergency room doctor, and co-authored peer-reviewed articles on the treatment of law enforcement canine bites in the emergency room. End quote, the judge's ruling reads. And guys, even though this is good news that Dr. Marie Russell is now permitted by Judge Bev to testify at the potential retrial, again, we're still waiting for the Supreme Judicial Court to make their decision. There is still a chance there will be no retrial. But should there be, this is good news that the defense gets to keep their dog bite expert. That twice now, guys, in the Karen Reed case, twice now, Judge Beverly Cannone has considered Dr. Marie Russell qualified enough to sit on the stand as a dog bite expert, first for the initial trial and now for the potential retrial. But think about it in the terms of Judge Beverly Cannone's wording in her ruling, right? She's using the word abrasion. She's saying it was a close call, like she almost wouldn't have allowed Dr. Russell to testify at the retrial. And in this, that co-authored peer-reviewed articles on the treatment of law enforcement canine bites in the emergency room, that is not all Dr. Marie Russell did. Dr. Marie Russell didn't just treat law enforcement canine bites, right? She treated multiple other patients who had been attacked by dogs in various ways, or by other animals in various ways, right? And we know that the prosecution is trying to imply that Chloe was not an officer dog. She was not a law enforcement canine. We've heard that argument from the prosecution. They've tried to throw out Dr. Russell's testimony because Dr. Russell it was supposedly more experience with law enforcement canines, but that's not the truth. She has treated multiple patients, multiple victims over her 30 years of experience who suffered from dog attacks. She also, as a forensic pathologist, helped to conduct medical examinations for deceased victims who fell victim to dog attacks. who died from dog attacks or whose death were partly contributed to by dog attacks. So I'm saying, guys, like this wording right here is not sitting well with me because it coincides with what the prosecution wants. To me, this is yet again Judge Beverly Cannone showing whose side she's really on. Dr. Russell is not just experienced with law enforcement canine dogs, dog bite or dog claw marks. That is not where her experience stops. And this theory that Chloe was a domestic dog, like as if the Alberts purchased Chloe from somewhere, from a dog store, to my understanding, Chloe was a former canine dog. And we don't know that factually. We really don't know much about Chloe, her origins, but there is suspicion that Chloe was a former canine dog. And if you look at the marks Chloe left on John O'Keefe's arm, canine dogs, law enforcement canine dogs, are trained to attack the arm in similar ways. They are trained to bring down suspects by the arm. There were no dog bite marks anywhere else on John O'Keefe's body but on his arm. It's as if Chloe was a former law enforcement canine. And maybe she had to stop because she was too violent, right? Maybe maybe she was dishonorably discharged, you know? Like, we really don't know Chloe's history because, again, the prosecution has withheld that information, and because, again, the Alberts have lied to all of us about Chloe's history and about the current status of Chloe. So my point is that there is a chance that Chloe is a former law enforcement canine. But the narrative that the prosecution will allow is that Chloe is just a regular domestic dog. For some reason, the prosecution doesn't want us to focus on the possibility that Chloe was a former law enforcement canine. I mean, what are the odds, guys? Like, Brian Albert, a Boston police officer, Brian Albert's brothers being involved in law enforcement, Kevin Albert being a Canton police officer, former Canton police officer. He was at the time of John O'Keefe's death. And Chloe being a German Shepherd, the dog that a majority of law enforcement groups use in this country. It's usually German Shepherds. So Chloe is a German Shepherd owned by Brian Albert, a member of law enforcement. I'm just saying, guys, like, it lines up to me that more than likely Chloe was a law enforcement canine. But the prosecution doesn't want that narrative in this case. And for some reason, Judge Beverly Cannone felt it important to write that in her ruling on the treatment of law enforcement canine bites. Even though we all know that that is not Dr. Russell's only experience. It wasn't strictly law enforcement canine bites. So what is Judge Beverly Cannone up to when she writes her ruling like this? Continuing. Cannone, in her Monday ruling, noted that the prosecutors on cross-examination focused on several issues about Russell's testimony. Quote, that Dr. Russell's expertise primarily concerns the treatment, not the identification of dog bites, end quote. The ruling reads, quote, that her evaluation of the abrasions failed to consider all available information, that she has not compared the abrasions with the dentition of the German Shepherd in question, and that her opinion is inconsistent with findings that there was no canine DNA in the area of the victim's clothing near the abrasions, end quote. So, yeah, it's really good to point this out, these various arguments. But again, Dr. Russell repeatedly said during the Daubert hearing and during the first trial that dog bite and claw marks, dog wounds on victims, have interested her specifically, especially over the years. And it's incorrect to say that her expertise primarily concerned the treatment and not the identification of dog bites. Again, like there is no industry standard for identifying dog bites. And maybe there will be after this case, guys, because apparently there has to be, because shysters in prosecution, any amount of shysters in any kind of prosecution could hold it against any dog bite expert that there is no industry standard for identifying dog bites, right? So by now there should be. It's clear, it was made clear in this case. There needs to be an industry standard for identifying dog bite marks and claw marks. But to me, it's like, hello, common sense. 2 and 2 together, guys. Connect the dots. Dr. Russell treated countless dog bite and claw marks over her 30 years of experience. But that doesn't render her qualified to identify dog bite and claw marks. Get real. Get real. Continuing with the article. And guys, there goes that word again, abrasions, right? Fucking A. Abrasions. The prosecution refuses to refer to those marks as claw marks, bite marks, lacerations, cuts, right? Refuses to use any of those terms, just abrasions. Continuing with the article, but the judge ruled that these issues can be addressed during cross at trial. The judge cited precedent about evaluating admissibility for a trial. Quote, a judge does not determine whether to credit the expert's ultimate opinion. End quote. And that's the end of the article. So guys, yeah, like I'm saying, we need to keep a close eye on what Judge Bev implies in her rulings here. Okay? It's like this is a win for the defense that Hank Brennan lost. The prosecution lost this battle. But the war continues, and we all know that Judge Bev cannot be trusted. She can't. She has shown over and over again, she has demonstrated her allegiance with the prosecution. She should not be a judge, and the defense made every effort to disqualify her. The defense made every effort to disqualify Michael Morrissey. The defense filed those motions, guys. But when those in power also make the rules and make the decisions, this is what you get. You can ask those in power to make it more fair for you, but those in power ultimately have the last say. And that's why Judge Bev is still a judge in the Karen Read case, and that is why Michael Morrissey is still the district attorney overseeing the prosecution of Karen Read. Thank you for watching.